Hello, my name is Stephanie Williams, and I'm a student at the Post University. I'm doing my informative speech on the opiate crisis. In the early 1900s, the opioid oxycodone was considered the main pain reliever for patients with chronic pain. It was said the label that opioids were to be used as long term use. Opioids are to help people with chronic pain, not make them addicted to the prescribed medicine. Today, opioids are used as a short term, but the labels are still stating long term use. I know this because I have used opioids for my chronic back pain in the past. Since I had my surgery, I have only used them short term. My doctor has told me that it is hard to get accredited doctors to write prescriptions for opioids these days because of the opioid epidemic. The reason is they are so addictive, and some people sell them to make a profit. Our communities are drowning with these opiates that are killing the young and the old. I am from New York City, the Washington Heights area. I lived in a community that doctors, drug dealers masquerading as doctors, were opening clinics and having workers, dealers, go out to corners to have people off the street to come to their clinics. They would approach people in wheelchairs, people with canes, and with walkers. They would tell them to come to their clinics so they could see them and use their insurance, such as Medicaid, to file false insurance claims and to give them prescriptions of opioids. You might have heard about Dr. Moshe Miralashvili. He ran a clinic 3 blocks from my apartment building. Everyone in the neighborhood knew something was wrong. They knew something wasn't right with this clinic. There would be lines of people waiting to get in. We found out the doctor was writing prescriptions for OxyContin and oxycodone and making a profit. The workers, dealers, would pay the patients to have the prescriptions filled with their insurance, and patients would give the pills to the workers and they would sell them and give the doctor a cut of the money. This went on for years. Finally, the doctor was arrested along with his workers. During a 2 year span, the doctor wrote more than 10,000 prescriptions for oxycodone in exchange for cash payments of more than $2 million. Brendan Crystal, 28, 2016, Washington Heights, NewYorkPatch.com. When a patient is hurt and in chronic pain, the doctors immediately prescribe opioids to help with the pain. They continue to prescribe these drugs without noticing the effects it has on people. The FDA continued to produce the opioids with no regards to the effects it has. The FDA is in it for the money. Today it has gotten worse. Now there are a few doctors prescribing opioids to anyone that has insurance to make a profit. They write the prescription, then the drug dealer sells the drugs for a profit and give the doctors a cut. Dr. Philip Dean, 62, a resident of Warren County, Missouri, was sentenced to 40 years, 40 months, of imprisonment in order to pay restitution to the Medicare and Medicaid programs in the amount of $312,000. Dr. Dean previously pled guilty in 2 felony charges: illegally distributing opioid medications and making a false statement to Medicare program. On August 28th, 2018, Dr. Dean was sentenced by senior United States District Judge R. Weber. These drugs are being used to sell to addicts that can no longer get prescriptions. They are being mixed with other synthetic drugs and distributed on the street, which is causing major overdoses. The opioid crisis has so far been the most devastating public health crisis of the 21st century. In 2017 alone, more Americans died of drug overdoses than in the entire Vietnam War. Britt McCandless Farmer, CBS News, February 24, 2017. Who is responsible for this outbreak? According to Bill Whitaker, who did an interview with Ed Thompson, a drug manufacturer who spent decades managing and producing opioids for Big Pharma, breaks ranks to denounce his industry and its federal regulator, the Food and Drug Administration, which he says opened the floodgates on the crisis with a few little changes to the label. The root cause of the epidemic is the FDA's illegal approval of opioids for the treatment of chronic pain. The FDA ignited an opioid crisis. Without question, they started the fire. CBS News, 60 Minutes, 2019. The FDA could have put a simple label stating not for long-term use, but instead they opted out. Drug distributors are delivering huge number of pills to pharmacies, and pharmaceutical lobbyists have pressured Congress to let them off the hook. The doctors who write these prescriptions for huge quantities are being sentenced. Florida physician Barry Schultz, who in July 2016 was sentenced to 157 years for his role in the opioid crisis. He believed he was a scapegoat. He believed that in his mind, he was doing things legitimate. Dr. Schultz prescribed more than 23,000 oxycodone pills in an 8-month period. That's more than 100 pills a day to a single person. For one 16-month period, his in-office pharmacy dispensed 800,000 opioid pills. He has the audacity to say he is a scapegoat. Doctors like him is the reason patients that need these pills for chronic pain are now being scrutinized before they are issued a prescription. Everyone should be tested to see that they are taking the medication. But is it to a point where you might be subject to humiliation as if you were a criminal? Do you believe that doctors should not go to jail for their part in the crises? In my opinion, all that had a hand in any way of fraud should be jailed. Sholnick, 2018. Drug manufacturer Ed Thompson spent decades producing opioids for the pharmaceutical industry. He told 60 Minutes that when the FDA first approved OxyContin in 1995, science only showed that the drug was effective when used in short term. Thompson said the pharmaceutical industry pressured the FDA. In 2001, the FDA decided to change the label for OxyContin, expanding the use for almost anyone with chronic pain, and changed the label to around the clock for an extended period. This gave the pharmaceutical the green light to push opioids to tens of millions of new patients nationwide. When they abruptly cut patients off, some start looking for street drugs like heroin to satisfy that current and craving that they experience. The widespread abuse of prescription opioids and a dramatic increase in the availability of illicit opioids have created what is commonly referred to as the opioid epidemic. The magnitude of this epidemic is startling. About 4% of the adult US population misuses prescription opioids. And in 2015, more than 33 deaths were attributed to overdose with illicit and licit opioids. Increasing the availability of medication-assisted treatment, such as buprenorphine and naltrexone, the use of abuse deterrent formulations, and the adoption of U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention prescribing guidelines all constitute short-term approaches to quell this epidemic. However, with more than 125 million Americans suffering from either acute or chronic pain, the development of effective alternatives to opioids enabled, at least in part by a fuller understanding of the neurobiological basis of pain, offers the best long-term solution for controlling and ultimately eradicating this epidemic. The opioid epidemic has escalated so bad that they are causing overdoses. The FDA needs to stop producing these drugs to stop the epidemic in our country and around the world. The way this should happen is to send everyone to jail, not just the street dealers, but the FDA. There have been 15.4% of deaths and 122 lives lost in the past month in Charlotte, North Carolina area. I'm sure if I do research for each state in the US, there would be the same statistic. According to Bill Whitaker, February 24, 2016, reported on 60 Minutes, the FDA ignited the opioid epidemic. Ed Thompson told us when the top-selling opioid OxyContin was first approved in 1995, it was based on science that only showed it safe and effective when used short-term, as I've been stating throughout this speech. But in 2001, pressured by Big Pharma and pain sufferers, the FDA made a fateful decision and with no new science to back it up, expanded the use of OxyContin to just about anyone with chronic ailments like arthritis and back pain. The FDA did it by simply changing a few words on the label that lengthy insert no one ever reads. Today, the label says the powerful pain pills are effective or daily around the clock long-term treatment. And the small label change made a big change in the way drug companies would market all opioids, allowing them to sell more and more pills at a higher and higher dose. There are people out there that might disagree with me, but I believe the FDA should be responsible for the epidemic of the opioid crisis. I also believe that the crooked doctors should continue to be accountable. When a patient that is in chronic pain, the medicine should be prescribed to them for a short term and then wean them off gradually so they would not get addicted to them. Some people have a low tolerance for medication than others. I myself have and will not allow me to get addicted. References: Brendan Crissell, 28, 2016, Washington Heights, New York Patch.com. Maxwell J. C., 2011, The Prescription Drug Epidemic in the United States, A Perfect Storm. Drug and Alcohol Review 30 parentheses 3 264-270. Retrieved 4/20/2019. From https://onlinelibrary.wiley.com/doi/full/10.1 1146336.20110029.x. Skolnick P. Period. 2018. The Opioid Epidemic Crises and Solutions. Annual Review of Pharmaceutical and Toxicology 58 1 143 159. Retrieved 4/20/2019. Smith Marty 2018. Warren County Doctor Philip Dean sentenced to 40 months imprisonment for illegally distributing opioids and Medicaid fraud. www.stl News Missouri News. Warren County Doctor Philip Dean sentenced illegally distributing opioid fraud 227270/. Whitaker Bill FM 2018. The Opioid Epidemic, Who is to Blame, pages 1-6. www.cbs.com news/news The Opioid Epidemic, Who is to Blame, 60 Minutes /. Thank you.